Okay, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about how to set up the tic-tac-toe board in Fusion. Um, Stick around. It's going to be noble. Okay, so you're going to need to want to start with this startup sheet. You also need to download the TM3 file off Schoology. That will give you the vices on the 5th axis parts all mounted on the vise. It's only missing. Okay, to set up the tic-tac-toe board, you obviously need to model your tic-tac-toe board. You're going to need this file, which is found on Schoology, which tells you the important information about how to place the board on the vices. And then, of course, you're going to need this file, which is also on Schoology, for you to download and import into Fusion so that you can then place your tic-tac-toe board into the two vices, the two Kurt and the Tormach vices. So let's get started. Let's get started. So this is a model of the TM3, the Haas. So let's get started. This is a model of our Haas TM3's table with all the vices that we normally keep on it for all the projects that we do. So we are going to put our model into this assembly and then do all the CAM programming for Op1, which will happen on the Kurt vice, and Op2, which will happen on the Tormach vice. So you're going to need to download this off Schoology and then upload it into Fusion, and it should come all put together. You are going to want to create its own folder, because if you open this up, there is a whole bunch of separate parts, and you don't want that to clutter up your tic-tac-toe folder. So I would create its own separate folder, and then you can go into this folder and you can open the one that says TM3. And then now we're going to go ahead and just right-click on the board. This is the most current board, and I'm going to place it into the model, and I'm going to click OK. And I have gone. My board has all the X's, all the X's, all the O's, and the feet, but I've turned all those off so that we're only working with this. So we're going to need, the very first thing we need to do is we need to essentially join it to the vices. We're going to have to ultimately make a copy of it because we're going to need one for Op1 and one for Op2. So we're going to first go on the keyboard here, J for join, and I am going to select the bottom back corner of the board. And then I'm going to select the outer edge, top edge of the jaw that we're going to mount it on. Op1 is done on the Kurt vice. When we actually set it up in the machine, this talon grip will become flush with the side of the vise. So we need to offset this up and to the left, and we actually also have to go, I guess we should. So this is going to offset both down in Y to the positive in X, and it's going to have to come up in Z. And all this data that you're going to need, is found on this sheet here. So if this is Op1 here, so it's going to be 0.06 back from the corner, 0.18 up, and then we have a 0.1372 from the left-hand side. So let's go ahead and do that. So it's going to be negative 1.3. For this one is going to be negative 1.378, and then the up one is going to be 0.18, and then this one will be a negative 0.06. And I know the negatives because the arrow is pointing away from it. And if we look closely, we can see that there's now a gap. And what this will do when we get to the next step of the setup is the 1-inch stock should then be resting right on top of these little edges. So we're going to go ahead and click OK. I'm going to go ahead and hit Control Copy and Control Paste, which now means there's two boards right over the top of each other. And oh no, they're not right over the top of each other. My mistake. One's over here. That's perfect. And then we're going to go J for join, and we need to kind of flip around to the back side to make sure we get the pocket in the correct spot, which we do. And I am going to select the top edge, well, what will be the bottom edge, which will become the top for this. And then I am going to select the front of the vise here. And we're going to hit a flip. Oh, nope, not a flip, my mistake. We're going to rotate it 180 degrees. Now, that's obviously not where we want it. If we go back to the drawing for op 2 is down here, and it's saying from the top edge here, it's 0.09 or 0.29 up. And oh, I did this wrong. Okay, so here's our once we pasted it, it came over here. We're going to go J for join. And the best way to do this is we are going to select this surface center of the back, or the bottom, I'm sorry. And then we're going to select the top of this and bring those together. And we're going to hit a flip, and then we're going to rotate it 180 degrees. Now, we need to move it the 0.02 so that it will align with the actual jaw overcoming the chamfer. And then we are going to rotate this, and you notice we have a big gap here because it's actually sitting inside the movable jaw, but it's 0.29, and that'll produce a perfectly flush movement. And then when we set it up, we're going to make sure that the board is flush on each side, left and right, when we put it together in the actual jaw. So now we have both op 1 and op 2, placed on our model. So now we need to do a setup. So we're going to hit save so we don't lose this. And then we're going to go to design, manufacturing, and we're going to do our first setup. So it's going to want to grab the whole thing, which is not what we want. We want it to just be so we're going to click on model, and we're only going to select, we can do it one of two ways. We can open this design tree and then just select the one board we're going to use. Oh, shoot. Okay. Okay, so we now have imported the model, but what we have to understand is in here are all these are actually all present. And if I move just the board, the O's and the X's will stay behind, which will cause us a downstream problem when we start to do the setup to actually do the manufacturing. So the first thing I need to do is I need to make this board what's called a rigid group, which means all the parts will move together, even though I have some of them turned off. So I went ahead and made this a rigid group. I can now go J for join, and I am going to grab the back, or I'm sorry, not the back. I'm going to grab the bottom corner, outside corner, and I'm going to set it on top of this outside corner. Now, that's not what we want. If we flip over to the drawing, it tells us some details here at the top that it's 1.378 from offset from the left side of the jaw. It's up 0.18, and it's offset back 0.06. So if we come over here, we can do those because the arrow is pointing the opposite direction I want. It's a negative 0.06 for me. It's a negative 1.378, and then it is a 0.18. And that will account for, which we'll show in a few minutes, the stock being placed in there as well. So the next step we're going to do is we are going to go Control Copy, Control Paste. And now we have two of them. We're going to move that one up. Once again, we need to do a rigid group here to make sure we move all the X's and O's with us. And then we are going to go J for join. And in this case, we are going to choose the bottom here and the top of this there. There we go. Now, we're going to flip this over and then rotate it 180 degrees to get it into the position we want. Now, we need to account for the fact that there is a chamfer on this soft jaw. So the first thing we're going to account for is a 0.02 chamfer, which that overcomes there. And then the next thing we got to do is we got to bring it up. In this case, if we look, we're getting this information from the drawing down here. And we are going to go 0.29 up, and if we then look from the side, it's perfectly flush. And there we go. So now that we have both models placed properly, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to go over to the manufacturing side. We are going to go setup, and it's going to try to do a setup for the whole part, which is not what we want. So the first thing we're going to choose is choose just that one piece. And then our orientation is actually correct. And then we're going to go to stock, and it is a fixed size stock. And for some reason I'm in millimeters, which I don't know why inches is set as a default, but there it is. So we got to go back to setup again. I am going to choose this only. I am going to choose a fixed size stock. It is 5.125 by 5.125 by 1, but it's going to be offset from the top by 0.02. And if we then click OK and we zoom in, you'll notice that the stock is now riding where it would be, and our part is in the perfectly correct location. So we have that setup done. We are now going to go over and do the setup, another setup 2 in my case, for this op 2. And once again, we are going to go, we chose the body. The point is now different. So the stock, it's not a stock point, it's going to be a model point, and it should be the model origin, but I think, oops, we are going to do a model point, and we are going to choose the bottom center of our piece. Okay, remember op 1 we always set it on the stock, op 2 we always set it on the model. So that's where we want it. If we come over here, it is a fixed size box again, and it is 5.125 by 5.125 by 0.98, because remember we shaved off 0.02 on op 1, and we are not doing the center, we are offsetting from the bottom 0 amount. Oops, 0 amount. And we click OK. So now if we look at the stock on op 2, you'll notice it sits right on the bottom, and it's sitting up where we want it to be. So now we could then program op 1 and op 2 in Fusion, which I'll do in the next videos, and we can cut the part.